Okay, adventurers, it's time to do some wheel bearings. Let's do a wheel bearing without any tools. This particular example, we're going to use the KTM 1190 Adventure rear wheel, which has 4 bearings in it. So let's clear a space on the bench and let's get to it. Okay, so 1190. I just changed these rubbers and then thought, oh, while I'm there I should do the bearings. So obviously the 1190 has a cush drive. So these are the rubbers that I just changed, cush drive rubbers. But in here there is a bearing either side of the hub, and then in the sprocket thingamajiggy there's 2 bearings. So we're going to, let's work on this part first because it's smaller. Okay, so on this side, it's 2 bearings. First we need to get out some of these little spaces. So a couple of screwdrivers, probably not the best way to do it, but I found that's the easiest way I can find to do it. So this is a aluminium spacer. There's one bearing, which doesn't feel too bad, but I've changed my other bearings. My swing arm bearing was completely gunked up, and so I'm thinking with all the river crossings and things that I've done, these are probably due for replacement anyway. So yeah, this one has, so this is one bearing, and there's so this is called a nylock, no, a nylon, no, nylock, nylos. This is a nylos seal on this side. I'm not some genius about this. I got the parts breakdown, looked up what the bearings were, and then went to the shop and bought 1, 2, 3, 4 bearings, 1 seal, and the nylos seal was not something that they keep in stock, so I'm just going to reuse this one hopefully. So to get this out, I'm just going to, it's a smaller diameter. So these 2 bearings are 30 mil inner diameter, and the other bearings where the axle goes through are 25 mil diameter, and the difference is the thickness of this spacer. So hopefully that makes sense. So I need to knock this one out. So I need a gap. So what you can do is grab a socket from your socket set. 13/16 seems to fit, and a hammer. And that is not the nylos seal, that is the other spacer. So this is the nylos seal, which you probably should replace, and then that is the spacer, similar to this one, but on the opposite side. I'll just leave that together since I'm not going to replace that anyway. Yeah, so this bearing has written on it 6006. These are the stock ones, NSKs. I went to get some SKFs, and they just told me these ones will do you. Koyo. I don't know, made in Japan. I don't know if they're good, bad or indifferent, but that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so the next thing is, how do we get these bearings out of here? So this is just your cheap $30 or $50 bearing puller. it has come in useful. I don't think that's going to work. It grabs a hold of the bearing at the bottom. There's a little cone that drives the legs apart, and then when you twist this, it just pulls that whole assembly up and draws the bearing out with it. That's the plan anyway. Actually, I've noticed, so I have to drive them out that way because that way, because this one is up against the lip. I can see I can see the inner ring, but I can't see the outer ring. So they're going to come out this way. So I have to drive them this way. Okay, so my plan is a piece of threaded rod. This is stainless steel, but any sort of threaded rod, and a couple of nuts to suit. I'm going to use one of my socket bits. Just going to go on there. Good. I'm just going to put a nut on that end and a washer, and then drop this through here. Alright, so that's what's going to pull. Pull! Put that over there. My nut. This is interesting. Have a look. Can you see the bend in that? That is quite a bit of pressure on there. The bearing is not sliding out, so I'm going to add some heat, a lot of heat. Bit of an odd thing to be driving two bearings out at the same time. It obviously takes a hell of a lot more pressure than normal. Hey! Well, some serious bends in that, but our bearings came out. My socket still works. And this thing, who knows? So this is basically what happens to the bearings. Look at that. Just the fine particles of dust getting in there. And they look okay. They don't even feel bad. That inner bearing is fine. Feels nice and smooth. This one, what if you can hear that? Yeah, that's pretty gritty. In fact, I'd like to dig one of these seals out and see what it looks like on the inside. That's pretty dry. I'll just get some, it's just carby cleaner, just to make sure I get all these. Any of these deposits off. I'm just going to tap this thing back in. And I'm just going to put a little bit of oil. And that is in. Certainly looks, make sure it's all seated around this side, and that it's pretty flush on this side, which this one does feel like it is. So I'm happy with that. Let's move on to the wheel. So the rear wheel, this is the side where the hub goes in, so there's no external seal there. On the other side, we've got a seal which we're replacing, so we're going to rip that out. There you go. It's a bit tight. So in here I can see that we've got a circlip. Jesus! The sleeve at this end doesn't move. The sleeve at this end, you can see, can you see in there? It moves up and down. It's got a free sort of end. So I can drive a pin down this way and hit this. So that is what I'm going to do. So I'll have this come down against one side, against the other side. Wow. It doesn't look too good, does it? Bloody hell. It's like rusted. That's plastic. It's a plastic, like a PVC bush of some sort. Okay, I'll just show you this because that area was just full of crap, as you saw maybe. So I've cleaned that up, but that is actually a very rough, it's a very rough surface in there. It's not smooth at all. So you've just got bearing at this end, bearing at the other end, and your axle goes between the bearings. So really these faces here are the ones that we want to get pretty clean. I guess that interior doesn't really matter. Just every time you slide the axle in with too much grease, I guess it just gets all over, fills up in there. But this is the bearing that came out of there. You can see it's moist all the time, I guess, so it gets rust on it. Okay, sometimes you just have to get creative. So this one has to get driven in, but I can't use the same method as I did before because it has to sit low enough that the circlip goes in, right? So I had a hole saw the same diameter, probably a mil less all the way around than the bearing. So I've cut out a piece of timber that I'm going to use to drive in the last bit. Ow, that's hot. Shit. Well, that was bloody easy. Went in with practically no force whatsoever. Maybe I got that too hot. Like I said, much easier to get in than take out. Beautiful. This side's hot. Oh no, it's the ow! It's that inner ring. It's bloody hot. So in the hub they were the 6205, I think 6205s. So this side's pretty warm already. I think I'll just put some oil on this one and drive it in. Nice! And this goes on. What I will do is clean that disc because I've got some blood and stuff on the disc from, from my knuckles. Okay, where's my seal? Light oil. Nice, and that is now a wheel, brand new seal, new bearing, and 1, 2, 3 bearings on this side, and I will probably pop that off and replace the, I forgot what it's called again, something starting with N, and I'll replace that at some point shortly. Yeah, put this back together and new bearings in my wheel. You can do it too.